So, this evening I am talking about desiring yourself or cultivating sort of a sensual relationship with yourself. So, I always say it's going to be brief, but we'll see what happens. Hello, folks. So this I'm talking about this specifically tonight because I was talking about it with a client this evening, and it feels like it's worth repeating, it bears repeating. So I have talked about cultivating a loving relationship with oneself and self worship, but talking specifically about creating desire within yourself. I think a lot of folks who are socialized as women, we learn that in order to feel sexy and to feel attractive, we need to have that validated or projected. So somebody has to, we have to be desired and we have to have it told that we're desirable. Whereas I think folks who are socialized as men learn that, and I'm generalizing, I admit, um, that their desire is something that they have, and they can go out and act on it. Excuse me, I have allergies. So for many folks who have been socialized as women, our our sense of feeling sexy depends on other people. And this can be challenging or problematic um, with anything. You know, if we're depending on other people for our confidence, if we say, I only feel confident when people tell me I'm great, then we run into trouble because we're always waiting for validation from other people before we determine how we feel about ourselves. Is that, if that makes sense? So it's not just specific to feeling sexy, it's specific to any number of things. We can't control other people, we can't control how other people act. So when they um, don't give us what we want in terms of feeling good, feeling validated, we can feel really shitty. So part of the strategy is really about learning to feel, in this case, sexy on our own without having to have somebody externally validate that. So part of doing this is doing things to make you feel sexy, doing things that you enjoy, that make you feel sexy regardless of other people's input. I mean, I say that obviously what we view as sexy has been influenced by society. So it's not that it doesn't have other input, but we're not waiting on other people to tell us that we're sexy for us to feel sexy. Um, and so feeling sexy beyond just like having being desirable to other people, but being desirable to yourself and feeling good to yourself. So one thing that can be helpful is doing um, like writing a list of things that makes you feel sexy. I'm really big on lists. So a lot of times in when I teach burlesque, that's one of the homeworks that we do, homework that I give, is doing something that makes you feel sexy. And we talk a lot about like what is sexiness and how that's a state of being, and how to cultivate that within yourself. Um, Obviously, you know, there's some validation that comes from burlesque, but in order to get up there, um, you need to feel confident, and feeling feeling sexy. Um, the validation is like a byproduct. I think like most people feel sexy when they're on stage, because of all the work they've put in, because they've put in all the like they've done a ritual around feeling good, and that the validation from the audience is like the icing on the cake. But I digress. So writing a list of things that you feel really sexy, or that make you feel sexy, or that make you feel good or sensual. And sensuality is different than feeling sexual. I think sensual is really about like appealing to the senses. So, think really focusing on things like taste and smell and touch, um, and really being sort of embodied in that experience. So, you can throw those things on the list too. Often, when we do things that are sensual, we might feel sexy, not always. Um, and so, changing our thoughts around why we do the things on the list and creating ritual around them. So this was something that my client and I were talking about tonight. Um, their thought was like, well, what's the point? Or it's a lot of work. But when we got down to it, we realized like, there was some thoughts around productivity, and we looked at really reframing about how time with oneself is productive and time spent feeling good is productive. Doing things like, so in this case, one of the things that person felt sexy or used to feel sexy doing was like, getting dressed up. Obviously, COVID makes that a bit harder for a lot of us, for various reasons that I kind of touched on, but excuse me. Feeling sexy, getting dressed up for oneself and doing it because, it's fun and it's a form of play. And it's maybe something that you did as a kid, and that, putting on makeup can be like a ritual that isn't about doing it because you need to, or you have to, or you need to look a certain way, or that you're trying to impress a certain person. You're just doing it because um, you like playing with makeup, and you like the way it makes you feel, and you like the way it makes you look. Maybe you feel like a different person, or a different element of your, or a different part of yourself. It's just allergies. Um, so creating ritual around these things that make you feel sexy and creating time for them. And that when we want to cultivate desire, um, we look at cultivating it within ourselves and creating time to spend with ourselves, doing things that make us feel desirable, that make us desire ourselves. And maybe a byproduct of that is that we end up feeling desirable and experiencing or expressing that with someone else. And maybe not. Maybe it's just about it feeling desirable and desiring yourself, and dating yourself, and fucking yourself, whatever it might be, spending time with yourself, and romanticizing oneself. So, anyway, I am going to try and make it shorter. So, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. I can talk more about this and some other tips in another live. But really, the idea that we can create desire within ourselves, and that we don't need other people in order to feel desired, that we can desire ourselves, and that we can create sort of a erotic relationship with ourselves external to anyone else who needs to validate that in us. And that one way to do that is to create a list of things that you really love doing, that feel good, that make you feel sexy, and creating a ritual around them. So maybe you're not doing them every day. It's great if you are, but maybe you're spending some real quality time on Friday night doing a couple things that make you feel sexy, or really creating a an erotic, that's another discussion. We'll call it a sensual or a sexy time with oneself. That's what we'll call it. Self-sexy time. where you do things that make you feel sexy, where you're creating self desire, external from somebody else, and without the purpose of anything other than to um, create that and cultivate that within yourself. I feel like I might be rambling.